Welcome back, everybody. So on this channel, I like to do a couple different things. One is to just stream and have fun. I stream some games on here and people like to come watch me do that, at least a small handful of people. I also just like to share some of my random thoughts about little things that have nagged me over time, or that I've had just this little opinion I've wanted to say and I didn't know where else to put it. So today I'm going to share my opinion about the 1999 movie, The Matrix. How timely, right? Now, The Matrix, it seems, was a pretty hot commodity in its time. It was kind of a revolutionary action movie with a whole kung fu thing and the slow-mo shots and all that. Now, I think it probably did steal some of that stuff from other, I think maybe Hong Kong movies or whatever. I don't know all that story. I think some of its reputation for that was ill-deserved, but it took a lot of that into the mainstream and became very popular. It also had a reputation for being kind of philosophically deep or having some interesting twists. And I remember this very vividly. I watched it in my childhood home. I was a young adult at the time. I had been to college and stuff like that, but I was back home visiting and we all watched The Matrix on our TV. And I remember thinking, yeah, this is pretty good, pretty exciting and stuff. But it really grabbed me the moment that I think they unjacked him or something like that. And he woke up in a little pod where they had all the humans in that big storage place and were using them as batteries or whatever. That I thought was just pretty mind blowing. It really added a whole twist to the movie. And it just felt crazy. That made a strong impression on me. And I'll remember the moment I saw that. But over time, my opinion on that has cooled a little bit. And I don't mean to just be edgy. And I don't know where people fall in this. I don't have a good measure of what people think about The Matrix these days, or even if they still do. So I'm not just trying to be edgy or contrarian or try to grab views or anything like that. But I've kind of started to wonder whether The Matrix is just a little bit dumb, or at least his reputation is overhyped. One of the things is, scientifically speaking, that whole thing about using humans for batteries is just incredibly stupid. They talk about how much voltage the human body creates just in the process of being alive with all your nerves firing and stuff like that, or whatever. We do generate a little bit of electricity, but I think it's pretty minimal in terms of powering something. Additionally, they would be extremely inefficient batteries because you have to feed them so much. And I believe largely what they were feeding them was other humans who had died, and they turned them into a sludge and piped them into people. So you're using the byproducts of other humans to feed, from some humans to feed other humans, and then using the electricity for them. There's going to be a massive amount of energy loss in that process, right? Also, this system is just going to eat itself alive. So this whole thing is just going to be so steadily imploding, and I don't see how they're going to even get the electricity from humans needed to pipe all the nutrients into them. The whole thing just seems kind of stupid. And maybe I'm barking down the wrong tree. Maybe this isn't the point of The Matrix. But they took the time to propose this as a scientific reason for why the humans are put in that position. And it seems like they thought that it was, I don't know, if they thought it was worthwhile saying, so I guess I think it's worth critiquing. And I don't know, this kind of stuff bugs me because when they do that, it feels like it's adding to the sense of this movie being somehow profound, and part of that profundity being in the science of it, I guess. So when you start to realize that some of these explanations not only aren't entirely realistic, but are just kind of service level dumb, you start to wonder about the whole movie. But the point really isn't the whole using humans as generators thing, right? The whole point is that reality isn't always what you perceive it to be, that there can be something beneath the surface and you're always being fooled and you have to choose whether to take the red pill or the blue pill or whatever. And so isn't that still kind of interesting? And the thing is, I'm not really so sure it is, because what is this movie really saying? You have the shock value of that surprise twist where he wakes up in the pod and you realize that his whole human life was an illusion. But what is that really saying? What is interesting about somebody just waking up and you find out it's all a dream? In fact, that's famously one of the worst twists in the history of TV and film, right? Like, I think Saint Elsewhere, was that the one where you learn that it was all a dream in the mind of a kid or something like that? So is this really profound? I don't know. I guess it can be kind of interesting. But part of the problem is there's nothing there but the revelation that everything isn't what you thought it was. And I don't think that's really that inherently interesting. But also, it's just an incredibly malleable idea. Anybody can make it anything they want. There's a thing in movies that really bugs me, which is that they validate bad ideas just by being in control of the narrative. So a famous example of this is Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is originally a surgeon, I think, and he's very scientifically minded, and he brings that mindset to his conversation with all the mystics. And in any real life conversation, he would be right. His scientific approach to reality is going to be the more level-headed one. It's going to be the one more likely to lead you to correct conclusions. So they take him and these mystics who would just be weird alternative thinkers or just superstitious people, to be blunt, and they turn the whole thing on its head and make him wrong and them right, just because they can write that there is that a certain kind of magic exists. And so I feel like maybe there's an element to that in this movie. It's not exactly the same thing, but still there's weird people who approach, not weird people, but there are people who approach this guy Neo with all these weird ideas about the world not being what you think it is, and they just turn out being right. And something about that sits a little weird with me. But circling back to this idea that it can be whatever you want to make it into, the whole thing is so malleable, is so nothing, that it's just whatever people interpret it to be. So when I went to college, I was part of Campus Crusade for Christ. I've changed quite a bit since then. And one event they did is they would put up posters with The Matrix on it. And it was supposed to just be I don't know if they would show the movie, maybe they did. But after or instead of showing the movie, it would just be this whole conversation about what that tells us about reality and things like that. And so basically, they and their cornball middle-aged man from the local Baptist church way, these Campus Crusade leaders were trying to draw kids in using the latest cool thing, which was The Matrix, and turn it into what amounted to a conversation about Jesus and Christianity. And the through line was that just like in The Matrix, reality isn't everything you think it is, even though you view the world in a certain, not necessarily scientific way, but you view it in a materialistic way based on just what you can actually see around you, that might not be all there is, because there could be a Jesus and a God out there and everything, and you just don't know it because everything might be just totally different. Reality might be just this big vision, and the underlying truth of the matter is just something that's so far beyond you that you might never know it, just like in The Matrix. So I got thinking, I think even when I was younger and I was a Christian and part of Crusade, that struck me as kind of just corny and irrelevant. But it just shows kind of the underlying stupidness of the core message of the movie, which is just question everything you see because it could be anything else. And what does that get you? What does that mindset achieve for you other than making you vulnerable to, just by suggestion, to anybody who just blurts out anything crazy and mystical and superstitious? I don't know. This gets even worse when the whole concept of the term red pill from that movie has been turned into this men's rights thing, the whole manosphere thing, where they claim that men are disadvantaged in our society, and if they just take the red pill and wake up, they'll realize that. So, I don't know, hesitate to say that The Matrix is responsible for that, because, they just proposed this basic idea and people took it in this other direction. So maybe this is unfair. But it still feels like that whole idea is so vacuous and is so nothing other than reality is something other than you see it as. I don't know. This other much bigger YouTuber, FD Signifier, he brought up once that we can't worry about whether people are going to misinterpret movies and shows. Say, for example, Fight Club or Attack on Titan and stuff like that. People have famously taken the wrong message for that. And so some people say, hey, let's pump the brakes and think about, and you can't do that because people are going to take things in the wrong directions no matter what. And you might as well just make stuff that's good and let them do their thing. But to me, I just feel like there's something different here, that The Matrix is just so nothing that it just feels like a bunch of fluff, I guess. Just a bunch of science can't explain everything in the world might be something totally different than you observe. I don't really specifically care for that. That whole suggestion, and it's just empty and open to being whatever people want it to be. So between the whole just utter stupidity of using people as batteries and then the nothingness of it's all an illusion and what that message means, I kind of think The Matrix just isn't that good of a movie. It's still exciting. The fight scenes are good, but what else is there? And when you suggest this stuff as being really serious, you're kind of putting yourself on the line as something other than an action movie, and I think you deserve to be judged accordingly. And then when you put all these ideas in people's heads about, questioning reality and stuff like that, I don't know. People are going to get there anyway. I think most of that kind of anti-intellectual, anti-scientific thinking just came from largely the internet in general, amplifying the worst of everybody's opinions and letting people with the dumbest opinions find each other and encourage each other and refine their ideas. But in some small way, I think The Matrix and its whole lesson probably contributed to adding that to the larger culture. So whatever. I don't know that I really have that strong of feelings against The Matrix. It's fine. It's fun. I watched it with my kids a few years ago and we enjoyed it. But just my rambling thoughts. Take from it what you will. Add your thoughts in the comments, I guess, and just totally chew me out if I'm wrong, or let me know if you think I've said anything worth saying. Bye, everybody.